Hello, and welcome back to Sharing a Chapter a Day. This is Do, Ra, me, and today I will be reading Chapter 140 of Engagement in Peril by Dara, Odoe, Sup. Chapter 140 is titled Shinshin's Reunion and Their European Getaway. Late fall of 2007, Delilah had wanted to go on a European trip with Intrepid Travels, the same travel agent that we had used when they both went to their tour of Japan last winter. She tried to sweet talk Shinshin in taking and paying for the trip then, but Shinshin didn't really want to go and didn't have the means and wasn't financially able to pay for the trip. But he didn't trust or want Delilah to go alone without him. He was afraid he was going to lose her once again. He wanted to be there for her. Delilah was upset at Shinshin for not agreeing to go with her and knew she wasn't going to get a free ride for this time, so she had thought. She threw a bit of a tantrum and eventually Shinshin came around and made a she threw a bit of a tantrum and eventually Shinshin came through and made her dream of a European trip possible. Luckily for Shinshin, so he had thought that his prayers had come true, maybe God had answered one of his prayers all these many past years. That fall of 2007, by sheer chance and luck, Shinshin was contacted by his relative who now live in Belgium. They were his late mother's sibling who had migrated from Japan to Belgium about a decade back and had been looking for Shinshin ever since. All they knew of him then was that he was adopted by a Captain Taylor in Japan and taken to the state after the good captain retirement. But they didn't know specifically where the United States and Shinshin had been taken to. So through some help from the Belgian U.S. Embassy and consulate, they managed and finally found him after a good 28 years of being apart. Those who had contacted Shinshin were his aunt and uncle, the sibling of his long-deceased mother, Kushina. They still had and kept the one-day-old baby picture of Shinshin that the good captain had given to their family before they departed for the States then. With the good news and desire to meet his actual long-lost blood relative, Shinshin was elated and told this to Delilah, and she saw another opportunity to take advantage of the situation. She had told that maybe she can travel with him to accompany him when he meets his relative and introduce themselves as a loving couple. Shinshin was delighted with those remarks, and he gladly agreed to bring Delilah along to meet the people that are of his blood, whom he never knew had existed. Delilah and Shinshin quickly planned their trip schedule and itinerary. Delilah planned out what she needed to just to keep her mother unaware of another trip with Shinshin. She made up some excuses once again and made up fake hotel statement and itineraries for her mother's security. From then, Delilah and Shinshin went on another long international trip overseas. This time, Delilah and Shinshin spent about 3 whole weeks in Europe, traveling from the United States to the United Kingdom, then onward to Belgium, to Amsterdam, to France, back to Belgium, back to England before returning back to the United States by that end of November. Before going to Belgium, his aunt had also mentioned that Shinshin had a female cousin who was her daughter, Kagome, in London, who was living in London, England, and that Kagome and her husband wanted to meet their long-lost cousin as well, and were happy to take him and Delilah if they wanted to see England before coming down to Belgium via the Eurostar train. That sounds like a wonderful plan to Shinshin, and Delilah liked that idea too. Shinshin saw and welcomed the opportunity to meet and greet his cousin, whom he never knew he had. He knew nothing of his mother's family. The tailor had never left anything behind for him about his Japanese blood relative. Maybe they didn't have time to do so since he was still their baby boy and such a young boy then, after all. They did die tragically in front of his very youthful eyes then. Shinshin was happy that he had some blood ties somewhere in the world and wanted to see so much to learn more about his late beloved mother, Kushina. Shinshin didn't remember her and didn't really remember seeing her face, and since she had died while giving birth to him, it was so important to him to meet his aunt and uncle, cousin, and possibly his grandparents. He smiled and was hopeful with the thoughts of meeting his long-lost blood relative in England and Belgium. The exact opposite of Shinshin thinking and hope, Delilah, well, she saw an opportunity to see Europe after all. In her devious mind and inbred means, she slowly planned her conniving way in thoughts and what she could get out of Shinshin. They both enjoyed traveling on trains and planes after all, and she knew he'll practically do anything for her if she just give him some ass and some compassion for a bit. He'll jump off of a mountain for her. For his sake, for this she knew of Shinshin For this she knew that Shinshin loves her. She too began to put her plans into effect and ready herself to crush Shinshin's marriage proposal aspiration. So the happy couple booked and bought plane ticket from the United States to England with British Airways. Once everything was planned out, deceit and lie were made up for Lilith by her childish inbred daughter. Shinshin and Delilah happily went about their trip to England and Europe. Since Shinshin had returned to the day-to-day sub-teaching, he had all the time in the world to travel, so with more of his saving drained for the trip and for the expected expense of two of them to travel, Shinshin slowly went into debt because the whore of a succubus continued to use him for her travels and extravagant means. There is no end to this horrible whore of a person. That goes double for her conniving bitch of a mother. Thank you for listening. This is the end of chapter 140. Be on the lookout for chapter 141, titled England and European Getaway. This is Do, Ra, me, and I'll see you later. Thank you.